given the state of the economy and 10% unemployment. Yet last week, one group bucked the trend and grossed almost $3 million in 3 days in New York. The group was none other than Britain's The Who, and the cause of the frenzy was due to the fact that this was The Who's last concert in New York as part of their last US tour, and that itself looks like being a prelude to hanging up their guitars as a group next year after a final European and British tour. Robin Denslow was in New York to watch another page of rock history close, and in the process he got some frank confessions from the great names of The Who, Roger Daltrey and Pete Townshend, about life, art and the punishing roadshow routine.
If you're going to say goodbye to New York, you might as well do so in style. 140,000 tickets for 2 shows at Shea Stadium had sold out in 2 hours. The open-air sports arena, home of the Mets baseball and Jets football teams, was the site of a celebrated Beatles show back in the mid-60s. It hadn't been used for a rock concert in 6 years, before last week's farewell. For after 18 years, The Who, the one-time Shepherd's Bush mods who became arguably the best live band of them all, have decided it's the beginning of the end. Their current American tour is their last, in the country where they've built up an almost religious following since the 60s.
I was sewn up like a gold. I took a smile at the bottom of the wind. Watched the fresh fall of snow. I knew then that my life took a turn. I felt strong and secure. And with a decent tape over my nose, I felt almost impure. The flash is the disco with the flashing trash bags. The flash is the disco to your birth and your jazz.
New York responded to the event in typical New York style. Who news on television, Who displays in the record stores, and Who nostalgia for a career that's always seemed even wilder and more spectacular here than it has in Britain. For Americans, they were nothing to do with London youth culture, mods or pop art. They were the band who in '67 startled even the hippies at Monterey by smashing up their equipment. A suitably theatrical start to a career that would go on to include epic rock operas and films like Tommy and Quadrophenia. 15 years on in New York, the Monterey generation had brought their then unborn children to see the band.
'67, I was there with him in my belly.
So you weren't even born
about 3
then?
days before he was born, and when The Who came on, he was really kicking very hard. I guess he was very excited by The Who's music. And so this is very monumental for me because it's 15 years later, and here he is with me at the Who concert at Shea Stadium.
So you weren't even born when they first came here. What did you think of them?
I think they're the best. They're #1 in my book.
Great. They're the best band.
The Who was excellent. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
The best. Yeah. The best.
Pete Townshend, guitarist, songwriter, and the elder statesman of British pop music, is now 37. He first expressed his dislike for touring back in the 70s, but was persuaded to stay on the road by singer Roger Daltrey. Over the past couple of years, he's had a well-publicised fight with drink and drugs, from which he's now recovered. Does he really mean to stop touring now?
I'm pretty sure that I won't change my mind. I think to some extent we've achieved everything that we set out to do, and most of that we achieved in the first 8 years of our career. And then we sat back and quite rightly started to get paid for what we did in the first 8 years of our career, and to some extent that's what we're doing now. We're going out and playing to audiences that are coming to see us for what we've done in the past and for what we represent within rock and roll, not for what we're effectively achieving today.
Does that
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, part of rock concerts is the celebration thing and and just the general everybody patting one another on the back mood that you get. But I don't think anything creative is happening at these Who concerts. They're bloody good concerts. We've done some fantastic shows. But there's no new ground being struck. And I need to strike new ground.
I can't imagine you stopping writing songs.
No, I don't think I'll ever stop dealing with music as well. I think to some extent, you know, one of the things that has left me with a great hunger has been the fact that music is what's fired me up to begin with, not lyrics. It's a great high, music, you know, it's a pleasure. And I suppose at one point in my life I was steered off more into the direction of words and statements and oratory. And I want to get back to music.
Pete, we're going to Shea now for what, the last Who show in New York ever. What do you feel now about what you're about to do?
It's very difficult for me because I have what they call sort of an abreactive nervous response, like David Sylvian of Japan.
What's that mean?
Well, it means that before you go on stage, you fall asleep. In other words, my nerves for a show manifest, so I go down instead of up. So I kind of get into a kind of a blasé attitude, you know, where I don't feel any tension or...
So the fact this is goodbye to New York with the Who?
In a way, goodbye to this place. I've never been here before. I mean, I'm looking out of the window at it now. I don't like the look of it. I'll be glad to say goodbye to it. I'm saying goodbye to it now. Bye-bye, Shea Stadium. I'll never see you again. You know, I mean, who needs it? You know, I never wanted to be a baseball player. You know, when I started to play, when I was a young kid, I wasn't interested in being or becoming what I'd become. I wanted to be a member of a band and play music, that was all. There were certain things on the periphery that I thought were exciting. The idea of being seen to be a little larger than life, getting a bit more attention, getting into the back door of clubs without getting in the queue, all of which I enjoy to this day, but they're not, doesn't matter. I don't mind getting in a line with anybody else.
One of the fascinations of the Who has always been the apparently contradictory personalities of its members. Townsend, the tortured, caring rock intellectual. Their original drummer, the late Keith Moon, a manic comic and eccentric. Bass player John Entwistle, the sinister, quiet one. And singer Roger Daltrey, the far tougher frontman, who spent his mornings in New York